Andrew burst from his office, his heart a tempest of frustration. His girlfriend's words, sharp and cutting, had pierced him deeply, leaving behind an anger he couldn't shake. The more he replayed the conversation, the tighter the knot of fury grew in his chest. He paced the city streets, desperate for a way to clear his turbulent mind, but clarity remained elusive. A pang of hunger, or perhaps a mere distraction, led Andrew to a small, inviting restaurant. He ordered a meal, a silent prayer, that the simple act of eating might soothe his agitated nerves. Yet as the plate arrived and sat before him, he found his appetite had vanished. His gaze remained fixed on the food, but his thoughts relentlessly spiraled back to the recent argument with his girlfriend. Why couldn't she ever truly understand him? Why did every discussion devolve into such frustrating difficulty? He forced down a few bites, but the meal felt tasteless, unfinished. When he finally pushed the plate away, a significant portion of the food remained untouched. Still lost in the labyrinth of his own thoughts, Andrew rose from the table and walked out of the restaurant, completely oblivious to the wallet he'd left behind. His mind was too consumed to register such a minor detail. Moments after his departure, a young homeless girl, Amanda, hesitantly pushed open the restaurant door. She hadn't tasted a proper meal in days, and her eyes immediately latched onto the forgotten plate of food. A fierce hunger gnawed at her, dominating every other thought. The enticing aroma rising from the table was almost unbearable. Amanda's gaze swept the room, ensuring no one was paying her any mind. With hushed, deliberate steps, she approached the table and slipped into the chair, her eyes never leaving the inviting plate. A tremor of guilt ran through her. She knew this was wrong, but desperation had become her only guide. Her hand trembled as she reached for a piece of food, bringing it to her mouth, praying to be invisible. But just as the first bite touched her lips, the restaurant door chimed again. Andrew, having remembered his missing wallet, had returned. The sight that greeted Andrew inflamed his temper. There, at his table, sat a stranger, a young girl, brazenly eating his leftover food. Without a second thought, anger boiling over, he bellowed, "What do you think you're doing? Are you stealing my food?" Amanda flinched violently, her startled eyes snapping up to meet Andrew's. She hadn't anticipated anyone returning. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible, thick with fear. "I didn't mean to steal. I was just so hungry." Andrew, consumed by his own fury, couldn't hear her. His anger was a roaring tide, blinding him to anything else. "That's no excuse," he retorted, his voice cutting. "You can't just take what isn't yours." "But I haven't eaten in days," Amanda pleaded, desperation etched on her face. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I needed something to eat." Her words fell on deaf ears. Andrew saw only an act of theft, an unwarranted intrusion. The concept of such profound desperation was alien to him. His voice hardened, devoid of warmth. "Leave. Now." Tears welled in Amanda's eyes as she slowly rose. She offered another tearful apology, but Andrew remained stone-faced, offering no reply. He watched, fueled only by a cold anger, as she turned and walked out of the restaurant. Once she was gone, Andrew returned to the table and retrieved his wallet. But as he settled back down, something began to shift within him, a disquieting unease. As the raw anger slowly subsided, a quiet, insistent voice in the back of his mind started to whisper, suggesting guilt. Had he overreacted? Should he have listened to her? Yet Andrew's pride was a formidable barrier. He was too stubborn to admit he might have been in the wrong. He tried to push the unsettling thoughts away, but the image of Amanda's tear-streaked face remained stubbornly etched in his memory. No matter how he tried to dismiss it, he couldn't forget the desperate plea in her eyes when she'd uttered those simple, haunting words. "I was just so hungry." Even upon arriving home, Andrew's frustration simmered. His girlfriend's cutting words continued to echo in his mind, and the lingering image of Amanda's tear-streaked face only added to his disquiet. Hoping his girlfriend had cooled down, he picked up his phone and called her. They were slated to attend a significant party together the next day, and he desperately wanted no further complications. The moment she picked up, her tone was sharper than he anticipated. She wasn't interested in discussing party plans or reconciliation. Instead, she made an immediate and startling demand: a substantial sum of money if she were to attend the event by his side. Andrew was stunned. He had always been generous, ensuring she had everything she needed, but demanding payment just for her presence felt fundamentally wrong. He pressed her, for a reason, but she offered no genuine explanation, merely repeated her demand, and then abruptly hung up. Frustration boiled over within him. There was no way he would give in. He wouldn't pay just to have her by his side at a party. But now he faced an even greater dilemma. He couldn't possibly show up alone. It simply wasn't the kind of high-profile event one attended without a partner. He needed a companion, and he needed to secure one quickly. As he stewed in his living room, a startling idea sparked in his mind. Amanda, the homeless girl. She might not possess much, but he vividly remembered her profound beauty. Despite the grime and harshness of street life, her inherent beauty had shone through. He imagined that with a little cleaning and preparation, she could effortlessly pass as his companion for the party. The notion seemed outlandish at first, but the more he considered it, the more it made a perverse kind of sense. The next morning, driven by this audacious plan, Andrew dressed and headed out, determined to find Amanda. He wasn't certain she would still be in the same spot, but he had to try. He scoured the familiar streets where he had last seen her, his gaze sweeping every corner. Eventually, he spotted her. There she was, hunched at the corner where she often sought alms, her face tired, her clothes worn from the unforgiving street life, but undeniably still there. As he drew near, Amanda's head snapped up. Recognition flashed in her eyes, quickly followed by a cold anger. Her expression hardened instantly, her gaze narrowing as he approached. There was no glimmer of a smile, no hint of welcome. Clearly, she wanted no part of him after their last encounter. Andrew braced himself, knowing this wouldn't be easy. He quickly offered a sincere apology for his previous outburst, attempting to explain that he had been upset and had handled the situation poorly. Amanda remained unmoved, her eyes still frigid with distrust. "Why are you even here?" she asked, her voice flat, clearly expecting nothing good. Taking a deep breath, Andrew laid out his predicament. He explained that his girlfriend had refused to attend the party with him, leaving him in a bind. He then dared to suggest that he needed someone else to go. He even complimented her, noting how her inherent beauty, with a little preparation, would make her perfect for the event. The very idea struck Amanda as utterly preposterous. She let out a short, incredulous laugh, shaking her head. How could he possibly ask her to accompany him after the cruel way he had treated her just days before? The thought of a homeless girl attending such a lavish affair seemed completely absurd. Without hesitation, Amanda flatly refused. Amanda flatly refused. She had no interest in helping him, and after their previous encounter, her trust in him was non-existent. Andrew could see his words weren't reaching her, so he shifted his tactic. He told her he was willing to pay. He named an amount, a sum so unexpectedly large that it made Amanda freeze. She hadn't anticipated such an offer. The money he was proposing was far more than she had ever dared to dream of possessing. It could profoundly alter her situation, at least for a while. Still, she hesitated. The thought of attending a glamorous party with someone like Andrew, who had treated her so callously, unsettled her deeply. She didn't trust him, and she certainly didn't want to feel indebted to him. Yet, the sheer amount of money was impossible to ignore. It could lift her from the streets, even if only for a few days. It could buy her food, perhaps even a brief sanctuary. After a long, tense pause, Amanda finally agreed. She made it explicitly clear. She was doing this solely for the money. This wasn't about aiding Andrew or being his date. It was a business transaction, nothing more. Andrew nodded, a wave of relief washing over him. The plan was now in motion. All that remained was their preparation for the party. Later, Amanda stood before a mirror, marveling at her incredible transformation. The dress Andrew had chosen for her was exquisitely elegant, something she had never in her wildest dreams imagined wearing. Her hair, carefully styled, framed a face that radiated beauty after a thorough wash and a touch of makeup. She barely recognized the sophisticated reflection staring back at her. When Andrew arrived to escort her, he froze. For a moment, he simply stood there, speechless, his eyes wide with disbelief. She looked absolutely stunning, far more breathtaking than he had even envisioned. They arrived at the party, and the moment they stepped inside, every eye in the room pivoted towards them. Whispers rippled through the crowd as Amanda glided past, guests exchanging bewildered glances, unable to fathom how someone so utterly gorgeous could be Andrew's companion. Amanda, acutely aware of the attention, held her head high. Though unaccustomed to such grand events, she walked with an undeniable confidence, knowing she perfectly embodied the role. Throughout the night, a steady stream of guests approached Andrew, their curiosity piqued, eager to inquire about his dazzling date. He offered a polite smile, keeping the full truth to himself, simply introducing her as Amanda. Amanda, for her part, remained composed, polite, and charming, despite the surreal feeling of being at a lavish party surrounded by people who seemed to possess everything. As the party drew to a close and they stepped out into the night, Andrew turned to Amanda, a profound sense of gratitude in his voice. The night had unfolded smoothly, and he knew without a shadow of a doubt it would have been a disaster without her. He pulled out the substantial sum he had promised, a thick wad of cash, and handed it to her. Amanda accepted the payment, acknowledging silently that it was more money than she had ever held in her life. She thanked him, her eyes reflecting a quiet resolve, and then turned and walked away. Andrew returned home, a sense of weary relief washing over him that the long night was finally over. But the moment he stepped through his front door, his father was waiting. His father, a man of staunch, old-fashioned principles, was unyielding when it came to family matters. Without preamble, he delivered a blunt ultimatum. Andrew needed to find a woman and marry her. He made it abundantly clear that until Andrew brought a bride home, the family company, Andrew's inheritance, would remain out of his grasp. This was the non-negotiable condition his father had set for Andrew's future. Andrew was utterly stunned. He had never in his wildest imaginings expected such a demand from his father, yet he knew his father was entirely serious. Without a wife, the company would remain out of his reach. A desperate scramble began in his mind. Where on earth could he find someone to marry so quickly? Then, amidst his racing thoughts, Amanda's face, vibrant and clear, flashed before him. Without a moment's hesitation, Andrew picked up his phone and called Amanda. She was surprised to hear from him so soon, assuming their arrangement was concluded. He quickly explained the dire situation. He needed her to pose as his fiancée, at least for a while. He offered her an even larger sum of money than before, promising that she would be completely taken care of. On top of the generous payment, he would rent an apartment for her, ensuring she would never have to live on the streets again. Amanda remained silent for a long moment, carefully weighing his offer. It was incredibly tempting. She had only just begun to savor the feeling of having money, and now Andrew was offering even more. The thought of a stable place to live, of never again having to beg for food, was an opportunity too good to refuse. After a thoughtful pause, she agreed to help him again. With their new, unexpected deal in place, Amanda began to prepare for the next step. Andrew made certain she had every necessity, from the newly rented apartment to the agreed-upon payment. She would receive. All Amanda had to do was show up and play her part convincingly. Days turned into a week, and soon the day arrived for Andrew to introduce Amanda to his family. The immense weight of the situation pressed heavily on his shoulders. If his father didn't believe their relationship, he stood to lose everything: the company, his position, his entire future. Yet, a confident assurance settled within him. He knew Amanda would fulfill her role flawlessly. Amanda, now settled in a comfortable apartment, meticulously prepared herself for the pivotal meeting. She understood the critical importance of this charade for Andrew, but she also recognized it as her own chance to permanently escape the harsh reality of the streets. The money he promised had the power to transform her life forever. When Andrew arrived to pick her up, he was once again struck by her astonishing transformation. She looked even more radiant than before, her new life having instilled a quiet confidence that shimmered about her. Together, they headed toward Andrew's family home, both aware that this was merely the prelude to a new, extraordinary chapter in their strange, evolving partnership. Andrew and Amanda pulled up to the grand family estate. The house itself was imposing, with towering pillars that seemed to reach for the sky and a meticulously manicured garden stretching far beyond the ornate gates. Andrew cast a quick glance at Amanda, unsure of her feelings. But the moment they stepped out of the car, she straightened her posture and donned the confident smile she had practiced. As they walked into the grand living room, Andrew's father stood waiting. His eyes were sharp, immediately assessing Amanda. He had been skeptical when Andrew mentioned bringing someone home, but now that the moment had arrived, his curiosity was palpable. Amanda stepped forward, her presence commanding immediate attention. She greeted Andrew's father politely, her voice calm and perfectly poised. She spoke with just the right balance of confidence and humility, complimenting the elegant home and expressing how truly honored she was to finally meet him. Every word was carefully chosen, every gesture perfectly controlled. Andrew's father watched her closely, but as Amanda continued speaking, his skeptical expression slowly softened. He listened intently as she answered his questions with intelligence and an understated grace. Amanda spoke about her background, carefully crafting a narrative that perfectly matched what Andrew had told her. She didn't try too hard to impress, yet her natural charm was undeniable. Before long, Andrew's father was completely captivated. The way Amanda carried herself, the refined manner in which she spoke, it all seemed genuinely authentic. He had anticipated someone shallow or materialistic, but instead he found a woman who appeared thoughtful and genuinely kind. He was impressed, a rare sight for Andrew to witness in his often critical father. By the end of the evening, Andrew's father was entirely won over. He even pulled Andrew aside at one point, quietly telling him that Amanda was precisely the kind of woman he had always hoped his son would marry. He lauded her intelligence, her beauty, and, most remarkably, her unwavering composure. Andrew felt a profound sense of relief, though he was also a bit surprised by how swiftly things had turned in their favor. His father, notoriously difficult to please, had fallen for Amanda almost immediately. The immense pressure of the evening had lifted, and everything seemed to be progressing according to their carefully laid plan. Amanda played her role flawlessly throughout the night. She laughed at the appropriate moments, offered genuine compliments to Andrew's mother, and even shared a few captivating stories that elicited rare laughter from Andrew's father. By the time they were ready to depart, it was abundantly clear that Amanda had left an indelible impression. As they drove away from the grand estate, Andrew couldn't help but glance at Amanda in the passenger seat. She had delivered far beyond what he had expected, and, for the first time, a new realization dawned on him. She wasn't just some homeless girl playing a part. There was something deeper about her, an inner strength and poise he hadn't perceived before. When they arrived at Amanda's apartment, Andrew felt a need to clear the air. He looked at her seriously, expressing his sincere gratitude for her help. He readily admitted she had played her role perfectly, and he couldn't have asked for more. But then, taking a deep breath, he told her something he felt she needed to hear. Though he appreciated her immensely, he confessed he didn't love her. He was profoundly grateful for what she had done for him and his family, but there were no romantic feelings between them. He wanted her to understand that nothing romantic would ever stem from their arrangement. It was, and always would be, just business. Amanda remained completely unbothered. She simply told him she didn't care. Love wasn't the motivation for her involvement. As long as he continued to pay her, that was all that truly mattered. She had no interest in romance, only the money. She then made it equally clear that she held no feelings for him either. For her, this was a temporary means to escape the streets, and nothing more. Andrew nodded, feeling a wave of relief that they were unequivocally on the same page. He had been worried that things might become complicated, but Amanda's calmness and directness reassured him. They exchanged their goodbyes, and Amanda stepped inside her apartment while Andrew drove home. A few days later, Andrew's phone rang. It was his father extending an unexpected invitation. He wanted Amanda to spend the entire weekend at the family house. His father, Andrew realized with a sinking feeling, had grown even fonder of her than he had ever anticipated. Amanda had utterly charmed him, and now he desired to deepen their acquaintance. A knot tightened in Andrew's stomach. Keeping up this elaborate charade was becoming increasingly complicated, yet he had no choice. His father's approval was everything. When Andrew conveyed the invitation to Amanda, she agreed without hesitation. More money and additional time in a comfortable house were more than enough motivation for her. She packed a small bag, ensuring she looked her absolute best when Andrew arrived to pick her up. As they pulled up to the family estate, Andrew's father greeted Amanda with open arms, visibly thrilled to see her again. He treated her as if she were already an integral part of the family, showering her with compliments, praising her grace and intelligence. Amanda offered polite smiles, maintaining the facade flawlessly. Everything was proceeding precisely according to their plan, and she was playing her part to perfection. However, Andrew's mother proved to be a far tougher audience. From the moment Amanda stepped through the front door, his mother's eyes followed her, scrutinizing every movement. A deep suspicion lingered within her, though she couldn't pinpoint its source. Something about Amanda simply didn't sit right. A nagging feeling persisted that she had seen Amanda before, but she couldn't recall where. Beyond that, she utterly disbelieved the story Andrew had spun about how they met. It all felt too rushed, too conveniently arranged. As the weekend progressed, Andrew's father only grew more attached to Amanda. He loved her eloquent speech, her kindness to everyone, and her uncanny ability to understand the family dynamics so well. He would frequently pull Andrew aside, effusively praising Amanda and remarking how incredibly lucky Andrew was to have found such a wonderful woman. Andrew forced a smile each time, fully aware of the truth, but utterly incapable of revealing it. Amanda, meanwhile, did her utmost to blend in. She conversed easily with Andrew's father, laughed at his jokes, and charmed the other guests who visited throughout the weekend. Yet every time her gaze drifted towards Andrew's mother, she could feel the chilling intensity of her stare. The unspoken tension between them was undeniable. Later that night, when they were finally alone, Amanda broached the subject with Andrew. She told him she suspected his mother didn't like her, noting a peculiar quality in her gaze, something off. Andrew sighed, knowing his mother well. He reassured Amanda not to worry, explaining that his mother could be difficult at times. But this was all temporary. They only had to maintain the charade for a little longer, and once the company was his, everything would be fine. He promised Amanda he would find a perfect solution soon. Amanda nodded, but she wasn't entirely convinced. She knew Andrew's mother was no fool. If she kept digging, it wouldn't be long before the truth unraveled. But for now, she would stick to the plan. The money was too compelling to abandon, and she had already come too far. The weekend concluded with Andrew's father more convinced than ever that Amanda was the ideal woman for his son. He even began to enthusiastically discuss wedding plans, excitedly telling Andrew that he couldn't wait to see them married and start a family. Andrew, trapped by his own elaborate lies, could only manage a strained smile and a nod, acutely aware that his time was rapidly running out to devise a more sustainable solution. As they drove back to Amanda's apartment, the overwhelming weight of the situation began to press down on Andrew. He knew he couldn't maintain this charade indefinitely. His father was expecting a genuine marriage, his mother was growing increasingly suspicious, and Amanda, despite playing her part impeccably, wasn't someone he could truly rely on for the long term. He desperately needed to figure out his next move before everything spiraled irrevocably out of control. Amanda, on the other hand, was already mentally calculating her earnings, wondering just how much more she could extract from this lucrative arrangement before its inevitable collapse. Meanwhile, Andrew's girlfriend, Monica, had grown increasingly suspicious of him over the past few weeks. He had become distant, no longer answering her calls with his usual promptness, and his excuses for missing their customary dates were becoming ridiculously transparent. She knew deep down that something was profoundly amiss. When she heard a rumor that Andrew had been spending time with another woman named Amanda, she decided to investigate. It didn't take long for her to uncover the truth. Amanda was the very same homeless girl Andrew had publicly berated weeks earlier. The pieces of the puzzling betrayal began to click into place, and Monica realized that Andrew and Amanda had orchestrated the entire deception. Enraged and feeling profoundly betrayed, Monica went straight to Amanda's apartment. She pounded on the door, and when Amanda opened it, she was met with Monica's unleashed fury. Without holding back, Monica vehemently ordered Amanda to leave Andrew alone. She vehemently asserted that Andrew was her boyfriend, not Amanda's, and that Amanda had no right whatsoever to be with him. Amanda didn't flinch. Instead, she met Monica's gaze with a subtle smirk as if she found the entire tirade amusing. She stood framed in the doorway, arms crossed, and calmly listened to Monica's rant. When Monica finally ran out of breath, Amanda simply shrugged and calmly stated that she wasn't going anywhere. She then escalated, insulting Monica, calling her desperate and pathetic for clinging to a man who clearly no longer desired her. Amanda finished by pointedly reminding Monica that Andrew had chosen her to bring home, not Monica. Monica, mortified and humiliated, had no choice but to retreat. She had arrived expecting to intimidate Amanda into submission, but instead, she left feeling utterly defeated. However, Monica was not one to give up easily. As soon as she got home, a new, more insidious plan began to form in her mind. If she couldn't get rid of Amanda directly, she would strategically use Andrew's mother to do the job. The very next morning, Monica called Andrew's mother. She divulged every detail, weaving a narrative of deception. How Andrew and Amanda had concocted a false relationship, how Amanda was, in reality, a homeless orphan, and how the entire charade had been a calculated scheme to win over Andrew's father. Monica emphasized with deliberate precision that Amanda was from an impoverished background, a fact she knew would infuriate Andrew's mother more than anything else. When Andrew's mother heard the devastating news, she was absolutely furious. The very thought of her son marrying someone from such a background filled her with visceral disgust. She had always held unwavering beliefs that Andrew should marry into a family of equal wealth and social standing. Someone who came from the same high social standing as theirs. In her eyes, the impoverished were beneath them. She firmly believed they could never truly comprehend the life her family lived, and she certainly had no desire for her son to be bound to someone like Amanda. Her mind raced, consumed by anger and profound disappointment. How could Andrew have dared to lie to them all? And how could he even entertain the thought of marrying a girl from the streets? The more she dwelled on it, the more her fury intensified. She had harbored a vague dislike for Amanda from their first meeting, sensing that something was amiss. Now, with this damning new information, her deepest suspicions were unequivocally confirmed. Andrew's mother sat in her luxurious living room, gripping the phone tightly as Monica continued to spill incriminating details about Amanda's past. By the end of the conversation, her resolve was unwavering. She was not going to permit her son to marry a poor girl like Amanda, no matter the cost. To her, this wasn't merely about love or feelings. It was about fiercely protecting the family's esteemed status and, cherished legacy. Monica hung up the phone, a wave of satisfaction washing over her. She knew Andrew's mother would handle Amanda from this point forward. In her mind, it was only a matter of time before Amanda was out of the picture and Andrew would inevitably return to her where he rightfully belonged. Meanwhile, Andrew's mother wasted no time. She immediately began plotting how to confront her son and expose the stark truth about Amanda to the rest of the family. In her uncompromising view, Andrew's decision to be with Amanda was nothing short of a foolish, egregious mistake, and she was utterly determined to rectify it. The very notion of her son being tied to a poor orphan was utterly unbearable. Andrew was seated in his office when his mother burst in, her face contorted with unconcealed anger. She wasted no time. The moment she began speaking, confronting him about Amanda, Andrew knew Monica had told her everything. His mother was absolutely furious. She vehemently demanded to know why he had lied to the family and how he could even entertain the thought of marrying a homeless orphan. Andrew, realizing he was completely exposed, quickly stood up and attempted to calm her down. He desperately begged her not to disclose any of this to his father. He explained, scrambling, that it was all merely a calculated plan, something he had concocted solely to gain his father's approval for the company. He fervently assured her that he harbored no real feelings for Amanda and that once the company was formally transferred to him, Amanda would be gone. He swore it was nothing more than an act, a necessary deception to fool his father and nothing beyond that. But his mother was far from convinced. She told him flatly that she didn't believe him. She had observed the way he looked at Amanda. She had noticed the significant amount of time they were spending together, how his eyes visibly softened whenever Amanda was near. There was no conceivable way this was just an act. His mother was absolutely certain that he harbored genuine feelings for Amanda, even if he refused to admit it to himself. Andrew tried to deny it again, but his mother simply shook her head, dismissing his protests. She was too astute for such facile excuses. She reminded him of the enormous investment the family had made in his future. She hadn't raised him to marry someone from the streets, someone utterly without family, money, or social status. She was not about to let all their painstaking hard work go to waste because of some girl. His father, she warned him, would never agree to this once he discovered the truth. Andrew sighed, feeling utterly trapped. He knew his mother wouldn't let this go easily. But he also recognized that Amanda wasn't someone he could simply discard at this crucial moment. She was a pivotal part of his plan, and if his father discovered the truth, everything would shatter. As his mother stormed out of the room, Andrew sank back into his chair, his mind racing. He had to figure out a solution before the situation spun completely out of control. The plan had worked flawlessly until now, but the threads were beginning to unravel. When Andrew's mother arrived home, her anger was visibly etched across her face. She stormed into the living room where Andrew's father sat calmly reading the newspaper. Without a moment's hesitation, she launched into a furious tirade, spilling every detail about Amanda's past, how Andrew had brazenly lied to the family, and how he had so cunningly deceived them into believing he was in a serious relationship with her. She expected her husband to be equally, if not more, enraged. But to her utter surprise, he simply lowered his newspaper, looked at her, and calmly replied that he didn't mind. Andrew's mother blinked in disbelief, her mind struggling to process his composure. She couldn't fathom how her husband could be so unfazed by such a revelation. He then explained, patiently, that he had already grown quite fond of Amanda. Her impoverished background was of no concern to him. In fact, he rather admired Amanda's humble beginnings. What truly mattered to him was that she was a kind and remarkably respectful young woman. The only thing that genuinely disappointed him was Andrew's dishonesty. He was upset that Andrew had lied about his relationship with Amanda, pretending it was far more serious than it truly was. Aside from that, he had absolutely no issue with Amanda whatsoever. Andrew's mother stood there speechless. She had fully anticipated her husband to share her outrage, but instead, he was perfectly content with everything. After a stunned moment, she slowly sat down, trying to process the unbelievable conversation. Andrew's father then picked up the phone and called Andrew, asking him to come over immediately. When Andrew arrived, he looked tense, knowing this summons was almost certainly about Amanda. He sat down before his parents, bracing himself for the inevitable confrontation. But to his surprise, his father spoke calmly, admitting he was hurt by the deception, but emphasizing that he now wanted the absolute truth. Andrew hesitated for a moment. Then, taking a deep breath, he confessed everything. He told them that, at first, he hadn't liked Amanda at all. The entire arrangement had been a calculated part of his scheme to win his father's approval and secure control of the company. But over time, something profound had shifted within him. The more time he spent with Amanda, the more he realized how truly special she was. He had been terrified to admit it, even to himself. But now, the truth was undeniable. He was deeply in love with her. He confessed he hadn't known how to tell her, especially after everything that had transpired between them. His father smiled gently and told Andrew that he should absolutely go ahead and tell Amanda how he truly felt. He reminded Andrew that sometimes the most unexpected people could completely transform one's life. Andrew's father encouraged him to take the chance, suggesting that Amanda might just feel the same way. Andrew was profoundly surprised and moved by his father's unwavering support, and he decided, then and there, to follow his advice. The very next day, Andrew went to see Amanda, his heart pounding in his chest as he approached her apartment. He wasn't sure how she would react, but he knew he could no longer conceal his feelings. No longer could Andrew hide his feelings. When Amanda opened the door, a wave of nervousness washed over him. He sat down, took a deep breath, and then poured out his heart. He explained how he had unexpectedly fallen in love with her, how he never anticipated such a profound connection, and how immeasurably much she now meant to him. Amanda listened quietly, her gaze steady, and when Andrew finished, a gentle smile bloomed on her face. To his astonishment, she confessed that she had loved him too, ever since the day they had gone to the party together. She had been waiting for him to say something, but hadn't wanted to pressure him. Hearing her words filled Andrew with an indescribable joy. Right then and there, Andrew proposed to Amanda, and without a moment's hesitation, she accepted. A wave of pure happiness washed over both of them, a shared understanding that their love was undeniably real. Meanwhile, Monica remained fiercely determined to shatter Andrew and Amanda's newfound happiness. When she heard about Andrew's proposal, she was utterly beside herself. Furious, she went to see Andrew's mother again, desperately hoping to turn her against Amanda one last time. Monica ranted, railing about how Amanda wasn't good enough for Andrew, how she was merely a poor orphan who had no place in their esteemed family. But this time, Andrew's mother was unmoved by her vitriolic words. Instead, she looked Monica directly in the eye and calmly stated that she wanted only the very best for her son. And at that moment, the best thing for Andrew was, undeniably, Amanda. She had witnessed firsthand how truly happy Amanda made Andrew, how his face lit up whenever she was near. Amanda had, in fact, completely won her over, and now Andrew's mother was a full, unwavering supporter of their relationship. Monica, stunned and utterly humiliated, had no choice but to leave. A week later, unable to bear the crushing shame of losing Andrew, and her spectacular failure to destroy his happiness, Monica packed her bags and left the country. She couldn't endure the profound embarrassment of being replaced by Amanda, someone she genuinely believed was far beneath her. Monica boarded a plane and departed for Europe, where she desperately hoped to start over. But deep inside, she was consumed by bitter regret. She had tried everything imaginable to win Andrew back, but nothing had worked. Now she was forced to accept defeat, departing in complete disgrace. With Monica finally gone, Andrew and Amanda's lives became more peaceful. The pervasive tension that had surrounded their relationship slowly, steadily faded away. 2 months later, after much loving planning and careful preparation, Andrew and Amanda stood before their family and closest friends, ready to exchange their vows. The wedding was a beautiful, intimate ceremony, held within the elegant confines of the family's estate. Amanda, radiant in a simple, yet exquisitely elegant white dress, looked breathtaking. Andrew couldn't take his eyes off her for the entire duration, still amazed by how far they had come. The man who had once viewed Amanda as merely a pawn in his grand scheme was now standing beside her, deeply and unequivocally in love. As they exchanged their heartfelt vows, Amanda's heart swelled with an overwhelming rush of emotion. She had never, not even in her wildest dreams, imagined her life would take such an extraordinary turn. From being homeless on the unforgiving streets to standing before Andrew, enveloped by love and acceptance, it all felt profoundly surreal, like a dream come true. Andrew, too, was overcome by the sheer magnitude of how much he had changed. He never thought he would fall in love with someone so utterly different from what he had envisioned, yet Amanda had become everything he didn't even know he needed. After the ceremony, as they walked away as husband and wife, hand in hand, a new chapter, rich with unexpected love and profound happiness, had truly begun. As they danced under the twinkling lights, Andrew's father raised a heartfelt toast. He praised Amanda for her remarkable grace and unwavering resilience, and with genuine warmth, welcomed her wholeheartedly into the family. His speech touched everyone present, even bringing a tear to Andrew's mother's eye. Despite her earlier reservations, she had finally come to see Amanda's true worth. She was no longer concerned with Amanda's past or her background. What mattered now was the beautiful future they were all building together. As the night wore on, Andrew and Amanda found a quiet moment alone, sitting together and gazing up at the twinkling stars. Andrew took her hand, a soft smile on his face. He told her how immensely he appreciated her, how profoundly grateful he was that she had entered his life. Amanda smiled back, her heart full. She promised him that no matter what challenges arose, she would always be there for him just as he had been for her. They both knew they had faced formidable obstacles, but they were undeniably stronger for having overcome them together. In the weeks that followed, Andrew's father officially handed over the company to him. With Amanda steadfastly by his side, Andrew felt truly ready to embrace the weighty responsibility. Together, they began meticulously planning for their future, both in their burgeoning business ventures and in their shared personal lives. Amanda, who had once struggled simply to survive, was now actively assisting Andrew with his work, bringing her unique insights and fresh ideas to the table. She had blossomed into more than just his wife. She was his indispensable partner in every conceivable sense of the word.